Did anybody else here go to summer camp? And it doesn't really seem to matter which summer camp you went to either. Seems like every last one of them had a ghost story, usually told around the campfire by either a counselor or one of the other campers. Well, tonight's true story is a summer camp story, and it's got a twist in it that I never saw coming. Without further ado, okay, so this is a story that nobody in my family believes except for my mom, and she probably only believes it because she was there for the aftermath. Now, this happened when I was 11. That was, at this point, well in excess of 40 years ago, so the fact that I still remember it so clearly should tell you just how deeply it affected me. My family has a lot of mildly sensitive people in it. For most of us, it's just when we're kids, and by the time we hit double digits, it's long gone. This was not the case for me. I was definitely much more sensitive as a child than I am now, but I still seem to pick up a lot of things that other people don't. Anyway, back then, I was still fairly sensitive, and that does come into play here. So what happened was that my mother had played musical chairs, the religious sort, my entire childhood. And when I turned 10, she landed on the chair for the Mormon religion. Nice people for the most part, but I am not at all a religious person. Somewhat spiritual, yes, but I do not follow any particular religion and never have. But my mother decided to sign me up for the church summer camp. She was going as a counselor, so she was also there. Well, in the classic vein of every summer camp ever, there was a story that was told about a camp ghost in the surrounding woods. The story basically went that the woods were haunted by the ghost of a young man who had drowned after falling off a dock out on the river just a little ways into the woods. In an exercise of preteen idiocy, my cabin mates and I all decided that we were going to sneak out on the final night of camp and seek out the ghost in the woods. Of course, none of us ever expected to find anything, but it was something creepy and fun to do. So at about 10:30 that night, lights out was at 9, the 10 of us slipped out the back window of the cabin with one flashlight and absolutely no idea which way we were heading or anything. Needless to say, we were soon hopelessly lost. At this point, it was just a bunch of 11 and 12-year-old girls fumbling around in the pitch-dark woods, trying to scare each other. It had been a nearly full moon when we left the cabin, but not too long after we got out into the woods, the moon disappeared, and suddenly it was completely dark, and we only had the one flashlight. As we all started to kind of realize just how screwed we were, and that this very fun idea had not actually been very smart, things started getting creepy. With the lack of light, we decided to walk in a single file line so that nobody would get lost. Each of us put our hands on the shoulders of the girl in front of us. I was actually the first one in line because I was the only one who remembered to bring a flashlight. Anyway, we started walking around in a straight line in what we think is the direction we came from, trying to get back to the camp, when I started getting a really strong feeling that we were going the wrong way. I literally heard someone say, as if they were right next to me, "That way isn't safe. Go right." It was a male voice, and as I mentioned, there were 10 of us out there, all young girls. This was not the voice of anybody in our group. Anyway, following my sensitive gut feeling, I listened to the voice. I just had this feeling that it could be trusted. At first, I did not say anything to the rest of the group about it. I certainly didn't tell them that I was following instructions of a disembodied voice until the third time I heard it. Of course, we all devolved into a group of terrified, screaming children for about 20 minutes or so after I told them. But then we realized that no matter what else was going on, we really needed to get back to camp. So we lined back up with our hands on each other's shoulders and proceeded to walk again. I continued to get feelings and whispered directions, but the other girls started experiencing things as well. None of them heard a voice, but what they did experience was the sensation of a hand on one shoulder or the other, gently guiding them left or right. And it wasn't just one of them either. It would literally be the entire line of us that would be gently pushed one after another. As I said, it was not a shove. It was a gentle little push to steer us off to the side. This happened to all of us at least 24 times over the course of the next several hours as we walked through the woods trying to find our way back to camp. We were discovered missing and eventually located somewhere around 4 a.m. and escorted back to the camp. At which point, of course, we all were babbling hysterically, and one of the counselors had to sit us all down and just get us to all calm down before they could even get a straight story out of us. Now, that alone is a pretty creepy story, but it's something that seems fairly subjective and can be easily dismissed and forgotten. What really brought it all home was what happened the next day. We were not slated to depart until 4 p.m. the following day, so we had basically a whole day at camp before we would be going home. All of us girls had been sent in to sleep, and we were not disturbed until lunchtime because we had not slept during the night and we were all physically and mentally exhausted. But we were all very surprised to be rounded up and told that we would be going on a walk in the woods because the camp counselors and whatnot had some serious questions for us about the previous night. So basically, we were led out into the woods where we walked the exact same path that we had walked the night before. At first, our path was very random as we literally just tried to find our way through the woods, but it turned out that we had been heading towards a cliff that overlooked the river. There was about a 40-foot drop that we were headed straight towards, and you could plainly see where we had stopped and taken a sharp right turn to the right about 10 feet before we would have gone over that cliff. We then walked parallel to the cliff for almost half a mile on a downward slope until we reached the dock on the river. The same infamous dock at the center of the camp ghost story. We could hear the river in the pitch black woods the night before, so we had realized we were close to it, but we never saw it. What really had everyone scratching their heads was the fact that we came down the hill along the edge of the cliff, and then we had walked out onto an old, rotting loading wharf. It wasn't a small dock like we had all pictured in our minds hearing the ghost story. This thing was massive, like the size of a football field cut in half lengthwise, and it was full of rotted spots. We had walked across it in a weaving pattern that was literally the only safe path across the dock, and we never even knew we were on it. But that is when we had felt the hands, because we had been walking fairly level, and then when we turned to the right, after I heard the voice tell me that that way isn't safe, go right, we had started going downhill, very noticeably downhill. And it was when it leveled out again that we felt the hands. That would have been when we were on the dock. Those hands kept us alive and got us across that dock safely. We walked close to 150 feet of rotten wood, and not a single one of us so much as stumbled. But in the daylight, you could clearly see the scuffed path along the dock that we had walked, and it was nothing like a straight line. Anyway, most of the counselors did not believe that we had encountered a ghost, much less that he had guided us in that way and saved our lives. I think my mom was the only one who kind of believed us. They all just said that we were all incredibly lucky and that they were going to let our parents decide what our punishment should be, as they would be informing all of them about our little midnight escapade. Anyway, that's pretty much it. I never went back, and I never heard from any of the other girls again, since none of them went to the same church that I did. That's not my only ghost story, of course, but it's definitely one of the strangest things that's ever happened to me. Thank you so much for that story. I didn't see that coming. I don't know about you guys, but that was a fantastic story. Keep sending me those stories and suggestions, guys. The address to do so is plainly posted in all of my profiles. That has been Jay's Haunted Appalachia for tonight. Keep Appalachia haunted, y'all.